What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to continue my deep dive into the Grateful Dead's 1974 officially released concerts. I recently did the Mars Hotel 50th anniversary, in which they had released a complete show from 74. Then I realized I had already reviewed a bunch of 74 stuff, and there were other 74 things I hadn't reviewed that I was actually really in the mood to listen to, because the one I had just listened to had raised my interest, had whet my appetite. So I'm now reviewing them. And today's 1974 show from the Grateful Dead is from the Pacific Northwest 73-74 box set, which was 6 complete shows from 73-74. And this is the May 17th, 1974 show from Vancouver, British Columbia. Before we get into this, there were pretty much, I would say, 3 songs, that I think most people would agree, I would say most hardcore Deadhead fans would agree reached their peak in 74. China Cat Sunflower into I Know You Rider, mainly the China Cat Sunflower, in which the transition from China into Rider had the Feeling Groovy jam, the 59th Street Bridge song jam that they would drop into towards the end of the China jam before they went into Rider. Perfect. That was probably, I would say, the pinnacle. This is the apex version of China Rider. Another song was Eyes of the World. Eyes of the World in 73-74 had this sort of, once they had finished the song proper and they were jamming out after the end, after Phil leads with like a sort of a bass solo type jam, they would go into this written, composed part, a series of like chord changes and tempo changes that sounded a lot like Stronger Than Dirt. A lot of people refer to it as the Stronger Than Dirt jam, though it is not Stronger Than Dirt. It just sounds like Stronger Than Dirt. Eyes of the World from this period are probably apex level Eyes of the World. A lot of the reason because of this little coda that's thrown on at the end of the jam. And then the one that I think you'd have to say is the pinnacle year is Playing in the Band. And I've said it, I've read it other places, I'm going to say it again, that every single Playing in the Band from 1974 is worth checking out. And there is a Playing in the Band in this show and in Eyes of the World, and a China Cat Sunrider, I guess that's a thing, that are worth checking out. This is a really good show. One, because it's from 1974. This show is on 3 discs in the box set. The first disc is everything in the first set, but the Playing in the Band, because the Playing in the Band clocks in at 23 minutes and doesn't fit on the first disc. And the first set is primarily a set that I think is driven by the set list. Like if you look at the set list, how much you're going to enjoy this first set, I think, is how much you like these songs. The energy is good. I don't think there's anything remarkably special about it. It really is just a series of really good, well-played 74 songs. Promised Land, Deal, which is still pretty short at this time, Races On. Played a lot in 74. It was on the last release. Great treat. Ramble on Rose. I don't think I've had a lot of Ramble on Roses lately. It was really nice to hear Ramble on Rose again. Jack Straw. 2 of the things that I don't enjoy from this first set, there's a Dire Wolf, and these Dire Wolves are like half tempo of like the studio version. They're like, don't murder me, I beg of you. I mean, they're not that slow, but they feel lethargic. It's just, sometimes they slow down songs and you just got to savor in like sort of the moments, and it allows you to just appreciate a little more. Sometimes they slow down songs and it just feels like there's this huge space that's just not being filled, that they're just trying to drag themselves through the mud. I am already not a Dire Wolf fan in its original form. I do not like this. This is a weight around the neck of the middle of this set. So if there is a complaint of this show, that is one of them. We get a Beat It On Down the Line. We get a Loose Lucy. I said it in the last video. I'm not a big fan of Loose Lucy's in this era. I don't think it's a song they ever really figured out. Sped it up, slowed it down. Sometimes it works in some shows, but for the most part, Loose Lucy is a song that I think is a noble attempt. It never worked for me. We get a Big River, It Must Have Been the Roses, a Mexicali Blues, and a solid Road Jimmy to close out the set. Nothing special, and to my ears, 2 moments which kind of bring it down. I think the Loose Lucy is more enjoyable than the Dire Wolf just because of the rarity of it, but they're both, I don't think, the best listening. That's disc 1. Disc 2, you get Playing in the Band, which closes out the first set. You get a 23-minute Playing in the Band. And as soon as we get into the post-vocal part, the vocals are over, Jerry's off. He's off doing his psych exploration thing. And this is there's two things going on in this playing. Bill kind of never lets off the gas pedal. Kreutzmann is just, there are moments where entropy starts to set in and it feels like maybe we're going to go into a space section. Maybe we're going to go out there and really explore some deep, dark corners. But every time it starts to drop, Bill is there, making sure the tempo might slow down, but it never stops. We never rest. This is like a pop and lock competition. You can't stop moving. Bill is not going to stop moving the entire time. And there are moments throughout the entire thing where it feels like that's going to happen, but Kreutzmann's not letting it. With Kreutzmann being that guy, it really almost frees up everybody else to like, hey, I'm going to entertain this idea. I'm done with it. I'm just going to like stop for a while. And it's almost like when they stop for a while, it's like everybody just keeps going. And so like it happens a couple times with Jerry early, where Jerry, he's out of the gate. He's going into that deep psych Playing in the Band thing where we're just like, psychedelic deadness like nobody else does. And there are moments where he just kind of disappears and you don't hear Jerry, but the band just keeps going. And every time Jerry kind of pulls back, everyone else seems to step up. Phil's like, okay, I'm going to drop a little solo in here. Bob's like, oh, I got some really cool chords. Keith is doing some really cool stuff on like keyboards. And every time Jerry drops out, it seems like everybody else compensates. And then Jerry's like, oh no, I got to catch up. And you could almost hear him like racing by, like, oh, I got to rejoin the race. I would use like a pit stop analogy in a race, but we're not going in a circle in this jam. We're moving forward, so it doesn't really play. But that's what it feels like. It feels like the momentum is always forward and people are stopping out and then they come back in. And over the course of this 23 minutes, we get so many different vibes because of this sort of relentless attack. We get a Stronger Than Dirt vibe that we kind of flirt with for a while. About halfway through, we get this crazy upbeat funky jam around the 10.5-minute mark. That kind of drops down in this low, really kind of snaky jam. Around 14 minutes, things get kind of super spacey and weird and jazzy. But again, Bill's just like keeping us going forward. Around the 17-minute mark, we get this absolutely beautiful sort of like Jerry like arpeggiating some chords, this beautiful, almost uplifting melody. And they don't ever really commit to any of these ideas for like more than like a minute. So there is this frantic hecticness about it. It's not like we drop into something and ride this vibe for like 4 or 5 minutes. We're like, okay, we did that for a minute. Let's go on to something else. It's exhilarating. It's fantastic. It's a wow. It's another must-hear Playing in the Band. That closes out the first set. Set 2, we start off on okay footing. We get a U.S. blues, Me and My Uncle, Ship of Fools, which I've grown to love more over the years as I've gotten older especially. And we get Money Money. Here's the cool thing about Money Money, or the not cool thing about Money Money. This is still not a good performance. It's a pretty painful song. Listening to this particular live version, it reminds me of Picasso Moon. It's almost like Bob, like there are just some musical ideas and some sort of like weird energy in here, which reminds me of Picasso Moon. Like Bob, like 15 years later, was like, oh, I figured it out. I know how to make this idea work. I'm going to just, put a little more riffs in it and give us more to do. Songs kind of do sound completely different, but there's an energy in here that for some reason reminds me of that. But Money Money was only played 3 times. All 3 times were in 1974, so we're going to discuss them because all 3 of those were in the Pacific Northwest and all 3 of those are on this box set. So if you got this box set, you get every version of Money Money, and yeah, I'm not sure anybody needs those, but points for being on here. And then disc 2 closes out with the China Rider. I would say a great 74 China Rider, but 74 China Riders are pretty fantastic. So this is maybe like second tier. Like it's not one of the first tier. I don't think it's one of the absolute must hears from 74, but the pre Feeling Groovy Jam, I think, is the highlight of this. It's some really good China exploration. Once we go into Feeling Groovy, it's fantastic as always. And we go into a rather subdued rider. But I think it's that before they get into Feeling Groovy where this one starts to shine. But if I were to rank all the China riders from 74, I would say this is like a second tier. This is not going to be the top. But it's still 74, so it's fantastic. And then disc 13, we get, or disc 3 of this show, we get the 2 songs on here, the only 2 songs which were released, I think, on the same day. I don't know if it was later. There was a Believe It or Not box set, which was 3 CDs. Believe It If You Need It was a 3 CD set that had various tracks from these shows. And the only 2 tracks from this show that made that box set was Sugary, which is the second song on disc 3 of this show, and The Eyes of the World. And I'm going to talk about that release later. I'm going to do the shows, and eventually I'll get to the tracks they picked. So disc 3 of this show, the second half of the second set, opens up with Greatest Story Ever Told. Pretty fantastic. We get a Sugary. I think the vocal energy in this is maybe the attraction to this more than the actual performance. And then we get a Truckin'. And the Truckin', pretty fantastic Truckin'. We get that sort of build, you know, that we're going to build and we're going to do that huge drop where it kind of gets into this like swinging jam. They get to that build, and when they reach that peak, before they drop, Jerry's just like, nope, I'm going blues. I'm playing the blues. I'm going. And we just go off into this total blues jam, this just like hardcore blues energy. We get that a lot in trucking, where after they do that build and then they drop into it, eventually we kind of wind up into bluesy territory. From the get-go, Jerry's playing the blues. And then it becomes clear that this is going to be a Nobody's Fault But Mine jam. And so we get some really low-key, really intense, really smoldering. Jerry is just squeezing out those notes and making that guitar scream for quite a while with a Nobody's Fault But Mine jam. And then once we like realize, okay, we're in Nobody's Fault But Mine proper, we get vocals and Jerry's actually singing the song. We get a Nobody's Fault But Mine. That's one of the best performances of this song, even without the vocals. And then on top of that, we drop the vocals. Absolutely fantastic. That goes on for about, the actual song itself is about 4.5, close to 5 minutes. Towards the end of it, things start to break down and things start to get chaotic and kind of crazy. And like, it's one of those like, okay, where are we going next type vibes. And then that goes into Eyes of the World, which was released on Believe It If You Need It. And it's a pretty solid Eyes of the World. I would say the song itself is normal. It's your typical 74. But there are 2 in the post-vocal jam before we get into the Stronger Than Dirt part, which they nail just... They got the transitions down. Every time they like switch gears, it seems like the intensity rises. Absolutely awesome straight Stronger Than Dirt jam, though it's not Stronger Than Dirt. There's 2 almost truckin' like peaks before that, where the band is kind of jamming and giving you that almost volcano energy, and it feels like they're going to reach a point where they erupt into something, but they reach that peak and then they kind of bring it back down, like, okay, we're done with this song, we're going to move on. And after they do it the first time, you're like, all right, that was pretty sweet. They don't do that a lot in Eyes of the World, but they bring it back down and then they bring it back up again to a more intense second peak before they kind of come back down, and then they kind of slide into like that coda jam. But it reminds me of Truckin' in the energy and just the way they're all kind of coalescing around an idea and bringing it to a peak. It makes for a really interesting Eyes of the World, and it's probably the reason it was released on the Believe It or Not CD. That goes into a China Doll. The Believe It or Not also goes into a China Doll, but it's not from this show. It's from a different show, interestingly enough. But this is a fantastic China Doll, as China Dolls always are. And then the show closes with a Sugar Magnolia. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. 2 complaints. The Dire Wolf is sluggish. The Loose Lucy, I don't think they ever figured out, though I know there are people who like Loose Lucys from this era, and I don't think this is a bad Loose Lucy. Like, I think if you're a Loose Lucy fan, you're going to like this. I would like to know if anybody thinks this is a good Dire Wolf, because I think the tempo is off. I think the energy is off. I just think it drags him down in the first set. We get a solid first set. incredible playing in the band that I would rank up there as one of those must-hear 74. If you want to hear another must-hear 74, find another playing in the band from 74, and there you have one. The second set starts off kind of weak, but once we hit that China Rider, it's great. The Greatest Story, Sugary. The Truckin', Nobody's Fault is just spectacular. It's just awesome. It's just such a sort of like change of what they usually do, just kind of switching it up just a little bit. It just makes it fantastic. And then that Eyes jamming in China. It's a fantastic listen. It's a 74 listen. It's like, this is my favorite year. This is why I'm doing this. Thought I would start with the best and go from there, but it's absolutely amazing. Where would I rank this among the other 74? Well, after everything I've said about this show and how fantastic it is, I've done 14 shows so far, or 14 releases so far. I have it there at number 7, the last one of the top half. That Dick's Volume 31, I believe, has 2 playing in the bands in it, so you can't compete with something that is 2 playing in the bands. And those other ones are just fantastic. Those top 2 are just grand slams twice. But yeah, I would put it at 7. I would put it right in the middle. And really the only ones on this that I would say are not your typical grand slam is Steal Your Face, which is an October 74. So it's not really in the meat of what this is. But yeah, man, this is a good show. I don't know if this box set is still out there available. I don't know if you can still get it, but I do know you can still get Believe It if you need it. Leave It if you dare care. If you dare, if you share. But yeah, this is a really good listen, man. It's another really good 74 show and another piece of evidence in my playing in the band. Every version must be heard. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Appreciate all those people who are like getting excited about 74 shows and are along for this ride. Love to hear your thoughts on this. But yeah, man, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the crazy thing is, the shows get better in 74. So at least in this box set, they do. Especially, is it the next one? Is it the next one? Or is it the last one? I think it's the next one we're talking about is going to be like, no, it's the 2 more. Not the next one I'm going to do, but 2 weeks from now on a Sunday. That one is going to be like, yeah, I get to talk about, I think my favorite all-time Grateful Dead performance in 2 weeks. But anyways, that's all I got. I'm rambling. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things, and go listen to the Grateful Dead, people. Go listen to the Grateful Dead. It'll just make your life happier and better. Peace. Talk to you later.